Hello again, North Carolina, and thank you for tuning in for yet another episode of Liberty Inc., your source for all things liberty in our great state. Today, I'm sitting outside for this introduction, paying homage to one of my favorite North Carolina features, our wonderful summertime thunderstorms, and its representative. We are opening this episode and every episode for the next few weeks with introductions to our candidates who are running for 2023 elections. Hashtag Gold Rush 2023. We will have all the contact information. I hope you pay attention, log in, and support them. Then we continue our presidential Porcupine series with an interview with Lars Mapstead. And as always, Dub and Groo talk sports. Thank you. Enjoy the episode.
Ladies, gentlemen, and boys and girls of all ages, welcome to what I think is going to be my favorite segment of the podcast for the time being. I love seeing libertarians in action. I love seeing people run for office, and we are proud to introduce you to all of them. The very first one we are going to get on here, this is Gheorghe Cormos. How you doing, Gheorghe?
Hello. Thanks for having me.
And as we actually discussed before this, I think it's best to hear everyone to hear the details from you. What are you running for, and why are you running?
So I am running for Town of Cape Carteret Commissioner, and the main reason that I'm running, I mean, it's, deeper on many levels, but essentially it's to get the message of liberty back at the local level. So that's basically what I'm looking for as a first line of defense. We spend a lot of time talking about national politics and state politics, and a lot of attention is given in that direction. A lot of the decisions that affect our daily lives do come down from that level, but the municipal level at the city level is essentially where the rubber hits the road, and you really do have a chance to actually stand up and have a platform and have something to say. So say, God willing, this wouldn't happen again, but say, for example, the federal government were to come down with more emergency power declarations and more lockdowns and shutting down businesses and all things of that nature. I mean, at the local levels where you at least have a fighting chance with your fellow neighbors, because at this point, you're not talking about, some faceless parties or faceless entities, faceless agencies, and all of their employees that do their bidding. You're talking about your neighbor. You're talking about the guy 3 doors down who might be commissioner, or you're talking about the other guy across the other street who's, actively pushing, which is something that I actually found as the most disappointing during the COVID experience we all went through, is that it's our own citizens, our own fellow citizens that would rather give up their personal independent liberties and give up their freedoms for a little bit of safety, or that false feeling of safety. And it was our neighbors. It's basically, sometimes it was even family people that were saying like things to the effect of like, oh, always out there on your stump speech about liberty and this and that. We care about being safe. And I'm just kind of was left, I don't know. I mean, besides just disappointed, obviously I was shocked at just where everyone else was with their attitude towards individuals. So anyways, bringing that back to Cape Carteret, I mean, like over here, some of the local issues that I have seen just that do touch on that same topic. I mean, for example, I read the budget just recently. They've decided to, I mean, again, not a big town. We're talking about, maybe 10,000 people, something like that. But they decided to give themselves a 5.3% raise. I don't know how you guys feel about that. As a
I think it's crazy when government officials give themselves raises.
Well, that kind of strikes on a different topic. One of the catalysts for why I ended up dumping the Republican Party coming over here was actually, I think, January 2nd of 2022 or something like that. It was one of these stories they put out. practically trying to catch everyone hungover from after New Year's to make sure no one's paying attention. But after all of that COVID shenanigans, they gave themselves about a 3% raise. And I was kind of like thinking to myself, like, what? I don't think you guys did a good job, but seemingly you do. You just applauded yourselves. And there's only so much you can really take until you really start realizing, like, wow, like these guys are actively together working against the interest of you and I, just people everywhere, anyone that actually has to pay for government. So,
You mentioned the COVID lockdown, and certainly that spurred a whole lot of people into action because there's we're not abandoning safety. Like, I'm not asking you to not be safe. I'm asking you to not try to mandate your version of safety into my life. Like, people act in their own best interest. And when people are actually putting other people in danger, we have ways to respond to that. We're not asking for people to go drive drunk through crowded I mean, it's like, hey, we want to keep our livelihood going. And then you see suicide rates go up, you see drug and alcohol abuse go up, you see a world coming out of an existential crisis and all of the emotional just disaster that's become. Education's falling apart, kids are suffering. But I think your point about the local level is incredibly important. So we had, I think it was Kent Miscage who said this, might have been Dr. Dan, but the local sheriff just said, I'm not going to enforce any of this nonsense. And people went about their lives. And you know what? They were fine. And they were fine. And then, no, go
I'm
ahead. Go ahead.
sorry. No, I was just going to chime in with a little bit of the local level thing. Is basically, it's true. And actually, out here, down east, North Carolina, out here, it was a lot easier than what I saw in some other places. Where once again, you would say, oh, it's these evil, faceless bureaucrats behind, up in their high towers. Except for, you go to, say, for example, Denver. You just try to go out to a random restaurant or whatever, get a beer for dinner with family, and you actually have the restaurant owners, and I'm not sure if this is because they're reacting to what the local government was telling them to do, but you essentially have people asking you for your medical cards.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
And it is crazy. And another thing too, I just want to say this is some people want to, and you guys have talked about it too. Some people have already moved on. They're like, I don't want to talk about it. It was terrible. We're done. We're moving on. The truth is, nothing has actually changed as far as the structure that the government used and abused to, abuse us, essentially. Nothing's actually changed. The only thing that changed is that it became politically unpopular to keep pushing it, I have another personal story with that is, I'm a veteran. I did 8 years active duty in the
Thank you
Navy.
for your service.
Thank you, sir. And then after 8 years active, I did 3 more with the reserves. And when we moved down here, we moved to North Carolina in 2020. When we moved down here, I was trying to get with the local unit over here. And right about that time it was happening, I was about to sign another year. And then they said, oh, yeah, now all of you guys have to do this too. I ended up refusing to take this shot, not because I was ever against any sort of vaccine. I mean, by God, I've pretty much had every shot they ever
But
said.
for the record, I am utterly against the COVID jab. I think it's, on a risk adjusted basis, is more dangerous, especially to children, but to everyone. If you're listening, I'm not a doctor, but I'm giving you medical advice.
Well, I'm not a lawyer. I'll give you some legal advice. Just kidding. Anyways, but I actually lost my train of thought where I was
You were
going
saying, so
down.
you were gonna sign up for another year. You've gotten a ton of vaccines. They said get this jab.
Right. So basically, despite the fact that, a lot of people sign up in the military and they get all the shots, it was never an issue up until it became you can't debate it issue. You can't question why kind of an issue. And as soon as I really started seeing the hypocrisy, I had to take a step back myself. And
Yep.
I was just waiting for them to come up with one. And then I saw it and I was like, you guys are hiding something. None of
Yeah.
this is kosher. None of this is the way, if there's nothing to hide, you wouldn't be doing this. It wouldn't be overplaying your power hand over here.
Well,
I
and
don't
then
like any.
it does matter, and it matters in the ability to ignore some of these things at the local level. It matters, like you were talking about these, because if government officials in your town can give themselves a 3.5% raise, then Congress can give themselves a 30% raise.
Oh,
It's
hold on a
every
second.
single.
It was 5%.
Oh,
My
5%.
my
Yeah.
local officials were doing much better.
Well, then there was another one. We had people at the Fayetteville town board meeting a couple months ago. They elected Fayetteville. I will tell you this: of all the corrupt towns in North Carolina, they're competing for. It's like them and Gastonia, who could be the worst. But their mayor was under investigation. One of the commissioners resigned in protest, and then the mayor. You read the details, not you if you're listening. Go check it out. I'm not going to go into the story, but then they elected two new 10 commissioners. They had this whole new commission or board or whatever they called it there, and loyal to the mayor. And then they tried to give themselves 4-year staggered terms. So as soon as they got elected, they were going to change and restructure the board so that they couldn't get unelected. But this is the local tyranny, and we need Liberty Warriors. Before I let you go, I want to hear a little bit about who you are. So Army Reserve, you got a family, you live in North Carolina for a couple years. What else?
Absolutely.
What else do you want the
So,
people to know about you?
well, I mean, I guess I'll start from the beginning. I was born in Romania. We immigrated legally to the United States in 1996. At that time, the United States, I mean, I don't fully know the details of how visa lotteries work, but essentially, my family participated and we won a visa lottery. Moved to Colorado, grew up in Colorado, and then said did some time in the Navy and work on Camp Lejeune over here. I also am a contractor for the Department of Defense. I know, boo. um, but you know,
If
we've
they're
lived
taking our
in
money, I have no problem with you taking it back. Me personally.
and then we lived in the Swansboro area for a little bit, and then just last fall we moved over here to Cape Carteret. As I said before, I did try to put in my name for the 2022 Libertarian ticket out here in the third district against Greg Murphy. That didn't pan out for some technicalities, some technicalities.
Stupid Board of Elections.
Yeah, but it is what it is at this point. But you know, 2 years later, I've been hanging out with the Onslow County Libertarian Party. We've been able to put on a couple of events. We've done well, this last fall we did the gun show, but that was the state came down and helped out with that, and then we've done some a couple of other shows. We're basically just you know, going out there, put your flag out there, put your reading material out there, and people come up, people come talk to us, and they see us, and they wonder, like, you know, I don't know, who are these people, why are they out here? But it's been nice engaging with a lot of people. So
We
yeah,
plant the seeds and then it grows.
yeah, exactly. Let's see what else about myself. What else would be pertinent to mention at this point? I guess I'm not sure.
So outside of your town, what's like your biggest political liberty issue?
For me, when I started talking about COVID and what's going on with that, I think I can pretty much rope into that discussion what you would basically term um, health freedom. And under that, I'm going to bring in basically marijuana normalization. And that under that entire auspice, you basically have people that are just getting jailed for nonviolent offenses. Everyone talks about it. Getting jailed for nonviolent offenses. The result of that is you basically you know, you're gonna lose a job, you lose your ability to, you know, not everyone, but many people could lose your ability to provide for your family. It's the start of what we always call that vicious cycle where you see people just struggling all life long. And then, you know, by the time they maybe get out of it, it'll be like 40, 50 years old. And all of that is due to the fact that you have police departments everywhere, you know, some in true bad faith are actually persecuting people, and we've
Oh
seen
yeah.
it. You guys talk
Bust a
about it in
17-year-old
Gastonia.
with a gram, charge him as an adult, try to turn him into an informant. He can't get a job, he can't get into college.
Yeah,
His
yeah,
life's
forget
done at
about it.
17 because he had a gram of pot. That's insane. Those cops should be in jail.
Yeah, it's, you know, and I'll say this. I wasn't always there was once upon a time that I had this discussion with a friend. This was actually during the George Floyd time and the riots and everything that happened afterwards. And he was very much on the defund all of this, F all these guys and ready to go burn it down. I was not happy about what my position was then, but I definitely wasn't on his side, and I think now 2 years later, as I really sat and thought about it, and I started doing a lot of my own reading, a lot of my own like research into just what happens um, in our justice system and how, it's funny. I went to law school for a little bit, and it's great to learn so much and how it supposedly works. But then when you see it in practice and you realize, like, wow, none of that is actually true, well, it sort of bursts your bubble a little bit, definitely.
It's what really drives me crazy. So I don't subscribe to the it's racist element systemically. Not that there's not racism in it. There's lots of bad things in it. But what bugs me the most is like the color of justice is green. If you got money, you're fine. And if you
Yes.
don't, you're probably in a lot of trouble.
Yes, yes, I agree. I think the large majority of even what we might see down here in Carteret County Jail is literally people that can't come up with two pennies to scrape together to bail themselves out or to go hire someone that will actually defend your constitutional rights because um no one else will. By and large, county governments are probably making some decent yeah, I don't want to sit here and say they're corrupt. I just want to say that it's convenient to make money off of the people that have the least. It's very easy because they can't defend themselves.
Yeah. Last question for you. You said you're on Facebook. Where can people look you up?
I will give you a link. It's basically should just be my name, Gheorghe Cormos. Unfortunately, there are it's a common name where I'm from, so they're gonna have to sift through a lot of that. My father's actually got the same name. You might confuse us, except for he's like 60, so hopefully not.
Yeah, it's no worries. And everyone watching, the name should be right at the bottom of your screen. And I should put it in the or the link. I'm sorry, and I'll put it in the description too. George, thank you very much. This is great. Thank you for running. Sincerely, on behalf of the party, on behalf of the state, on behalf of Liberty, thank you. We need more people. So
Thank
it's
you for
awesome
having
to
me.
see. And we will check in with you probably in a month or so. All right, take it easy. Hey, what's up, everyone? Continuing our potential presidential porcupine series, I am really excited to have perhaps the Libertarian candidate who is raising the most eyebrows. And what do I mean by that? Lars, I don't want to say came out of nowhere, but came out of nowhere with a plan is a better way to put it. One of the things that has caught my interest is Lars is very dedicated to getting one electoral vote. Now, we're going to talk with him lots about goals and what success looks like. And obviously, we'd love to see more, but we've never had one. That would be a major accomplishment. And so, for all of those who are with us this evening, I am very happy to introduce Lars Mapstead. Lars, how you doing tonight?
Great. Thanks for having me.
No, I'm really happy to have you here. You have been, I don't know if it counts as the media circuit. It's the libertarian media circuit. It's something a little different. It's not Stephen Colbert, thank God. Although I would be happy to watch you on that one. But the podcast circuit, some of the other smaller news shows,
Yeah.
you talk a whole lot about who you are, where you've come from, and why you're running. And so I don't want to rehash that. I'm much more interested in what you're going to do as a presidential candidate. And so
Yep.
the first thing I want to talk about, we have talked about it here on Liberty Inc. a whole lot, that the reason the government with the power to sort of mandate things to people is doomed to fail is because people with money will want the influence to make their lives better. So they buy the influence from the politicians who will always work for the people funding them. And what happens is you get two parties who are incentivized to drive each other apart, and we're in this incredibly polarized environment. We're seeing some polarization now in the Libertarian Party. And I'm one of the ones who maintains that we agree on like 95% of everything. And because we're principled, that 5% can turn into bitter fights. But as the presidential candidate, you would be the face of the party.
Yeah.
How do you rectify the gaps that have developed and sort of build bridges and get the party back together and united?
Yeah, I think in some ways it's the same thing for the country. And what it is that we've kind of lost a thing to focus on. We've lost a goal. We've lost a purpose. And I think when you lose your purpose and you don't have a focus, you kind of just, tend to wander and pick up at different things, that sort of thing. And, I ran a bunch of companies over the years, and the times that we were the most successful is when we were pushing out a new product, or we had a deadline to reach, and we needed them, everybody was focused on a certain task and getting that done. And so in a lot of ways, my electoral vote campaign, winning an electoral vote for the Libertarian Party, I think is a goal that if I am the nominee, will kind of solidify the party together, because everybody will be working toward that. I want to saturate the ground where we're at in these states that we're pushing for. I want to be on every street corner. I want to be in every coffee shop. I want to be in every barber shop. I want the towns that we're focusing on to be so sick of seeing and hearing libertarian messages that they want us to go away. Right? That's the kind of saturation that I want to see. I want to be on every radio station, on every television station. I want to be, every time they open their Facebook, I want an ad from the Libertarian Party saying that, they should vote for libertarians in that area. And part of my expertise is social media marketing. I've spent literally $100 million on advertising, in my career. Yeah. So I'm good at it, right? And so whatever money that we bring in, I'm going to use to maximum value to get our message out to as many people as possible. And I believe that winning the electoral vote is fully achievable. It is a fully achievable goal. It's not a pie in the sky goal. If we get together and we focus on this one thing, we can do it. And imagine if you're on election night and they're like, California is blue, Texas is red, Florida is red, New York is blue. What the hell is this gold doing on the map up here, right? The media, their heads would just explode. And imagine if we were the deciding factor in the election, right? And we tossed it one way or another, or we tossed it to the House to make the decision if we were the tie vote, right? That would just put libertarians completely on the map. Everybody be talking about it. And one of my goals is I want everybody in America to Google what is a libertarian, because that's how I found out I was a libertarian. I had always been a libertarian, but I didn't know that I was a libertarian until I Googled it. Right. And then I'm like, oh, these are my people. They believe the same stuff that I do. I couldn't believe there was other people that believe the way that I do. I always felt like I was a weird outsider or something. Right.
So I love that. It is truly amazing. I love to say that I'm a collectivist as a joke, but what I really am is someone who believes in the power of a team, and that's cooperativism, that's voluntarism. But the whole point of a team is that everyone's working toward a common goal. And people who are better at certain things fall into the place where they're best at advancing that. So I love that message. If we're working together towards a common goal, one of the things is that right now, without a goal to work towards, the goal becomes advancement of your own interests, which is fine. I mean, we're all working in our own self-interest, but yeah, when our self-interest becomes that of the party, that's when we're really seeing the success that we want. And then we can go back to infighting after we
the media. And I say, if we're fighting each other, we can't fight the state. Right. And to me, the whole point of me coming in here is not to like push my agenda on you. Lord knows we've got enough of that going on in the duopoly. Right. I'm not here to push my agenda on you. I'm here to end the state, to reduce the state, to get government out of my life and your life, and whatever I need to do to make that happen. And I think that's the common goal. That's the common thread that ties us all together. Now, libertarians want to reduce the state. Now, some of us want to reduce the state to 0, and then other people want to reduce the state to like 5 people, right? So, you know what I mean? Like we all have that goal, and I think that that's what we need to unify around, is ending the state as much as possible.
So Larry Sharp was on here, I think episode 3. He also spoke at our convention, and Larry's full of like wise quips. He is one of the more sagacious people I've ever met.
Yeah.
And one of the things he said was, because he's not an ANCAP, I'm certainly not an ANCAP. I'm a very solidly minarchist, which is not to get into that philosophy, but Larry said, we need our ANCAPs. They should be our North Star. Yep. And I have taken that to heart. It doesn't matter if you're an ANCAP. We should be working towards that, because we are a very long way from having a real debate about anarchy or minarchy. It's philosophical purely.
Yeah, 100%.
we do love this philosophical stuff. And so one of the big things that I see sort of embedding itself in the tug of war that is the philosophical battle in the Liberty Party is this idea of, do we exist to advance liberty or do we exist to win elections? And I know they're not mutually exclusive, but there is a difference, especially, I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're familiar with game theory. I've read enough of your history to say. So if you're looking at it from like a particularly game theory strategical perspective, there's a difference in approaching winning elections, which is what the Republican and Democratic parties do. They
Yep.
win elections.
Yeah.
And there's an argument that we're a party and that's what we should be doing. But the other is that that's the downfall of them and we should be spreading liberty. I'm curious which one you think deserves priority and how that shapes your strategy.
Yeah. So first off, I watched that same thing that Larry put out, and I hired Larry a while ago to be my advisor, and he's been my
nice.
advisor for quite a while now.
He's a
So a lot of
wonderful
my messaging comes out from, he's on my policy team, and so I get a lot of his messaging and kind of blend it with my messaging, and so that's where a lot of my stuff is coming from, and then mixed with my own things. And I think that the answer to this question is that obviously for president, it's different than winning an election, right? It's a long shot to win the presidency, right? But for down ballot candidates, it's a real option, right? If you're a city council person or you're going for a state position, those are real options. Those are things that we can win, and we should be trying to win those, because we're not going to make any change with just messaging. I should take that back. We can make change with messaging because we can push the Overton window, and we are seeing that a little bit right now in the duopoly is starting to shift their messaging, some of them to more libertarian messaging. So I think that messaging is important. I think both are equally important, because once we shift that Overton window, we have to have somebody in office that can affect change, right? That can show that we're actually doing things and show that our solutions are workable, and that we have real solutions that can help people in their day-to-day life, right? In the end, that's what people vote for, is like, can you help me with the crazy inflation that's going on? Can you help me pay my bills better? That's what people care about, right? And I know that because I grew up, like you said, I grew up really poor. And I grew up, getting to the end of the month and eating top ramen for days on end at the end, waiting for the next check to come in, right?
It changes you.
It changes you, right? So I know what that's like, and so I am in touch with the regular guy. I'm in touch. I was a dishwasher. I cleaned out grease traps. I've done all the jobs that I wish I never had to do, right? And so I understand that, and all of my friends that I hang out with every day are regular people, right? They're construction workers. They work at, florists or gyms or whatever it is that they do. And so I don't really bro down with elite kind of people. And so I see people suffering all the time, and everybody kind of tells me, hey, this is hard for me. The healthcare sucks, or the education system is rigged, or the justice system is rigged against me, right? All these people come to me. And so that's kind of my impetus for running, is that all my friends just kept coming to me and saying, look, the system isn't working for me. Like, I don't know who it's working for, but it ain't working for me. Could you do something? You'd be a good president. Why don't you go in there and try to do something for us, right? And that's essentially why I'm running.
So you touched on two things that I think are really important as we ponder our way forward right now. You mentioned the uniparty, the duopoly has adopted both sides, and it is not a presidential election year, to be fair. So they're going to be bolder in messaging before they tighten it up. But we see two of the media darling candidates, whether they like them or not, are Vivek Ramaswamy and RFK Jr. And they both have some big policy holes that I'm just not down with, but they are leading with very libertarian messaging.
Yep.
So we talk about messaging, we talk about liberty advancing in the uniparty. You said people are worried about how they're going to make their rent. They're worried about, am I going to get falsely arrested and not being able to push back on this? Well, first of all, do you think that the libertarian or more liberty focused messaging really is permeating our collective unconscious, if you will, on a permanent basis, or is it more a novelty because of the conditions right now? And then how do you take that messaging and get it from our deep philosophical battles over like what constitutes intellectual property and turn it into kitchen table issue solutions?
Yeah, I think that, you know, libertarian ideals can often be kind of nerdy and heady, right? And so they don't necessarily resonate with the regular guy. But if you talk to people about taxes and how, you know, and if you talk to them about how like hard it is to pay taxes or how so much taxes are being taken out, people get that, right? So you just have to like be able to talk regular people talk, right? You have to be able to say, look, like, you know, if you had more money in your pocket, if you weren't paying so much taxes, if you weren't paying payroll taxes, wouldn't that be good for you? And they'd be like, yeah, that'd be awesome if I could have another $100 a month or something in my pocket. That would go a long way, right? Because I mean, the thing is when you don't have a lot of money, $100 is a lot. You know what I mean?
$5 can be a lot.
You know, and it's like that's I often measured everything in Top Ramen for years. I'd be like $100. You could buy 400 packages of Top Ramen for that if you get it at the discount barn, right?
So, you know what it was for me? It was massive waffle packs and big things of peanut butter.
There you go. Yeah. So I think that our messaging resonates. We just have to like kind of focus on the things that resonate with people, right? And get to the things that people really care about. They care about the economy, stupid, for sure. That's 100%, right? Yeah. They care about healthcare and the rising cost of healthcare and how they can't find a doctor anymore. And when they do get a doctor, it sucks, right? They care about the criminal justice system. They see that there is a rigged system in the criminal justice system, that there's two kind of sets of laws for different kinds of people. And so I think we just need to, you know, attack that. And when we do that, I think it will resonate with people, and we can pull people in. And basically what you said is there's these candidates now in the duopoly that are starting to adopt some of the libertarian messaging. And I think that's great. And that happened before, right? That happened before with marijuana laws, right? For a long time, we were talking marijuana, and they weren't touching it. And then finally, one guy was like, yeah, I think we could probably crack that a little bit. And the window shifted a little bit. And suddenly it was okay to talk about that, right? So the great news is these guys are making all those pitches to their constituent, or, you know, to the duopoly. And I don't think that RFK Jr. or Vivek will be on the ballot in November of 2024. I don't think they're going to make it. But here's the thing. They're messaging all that messaging. And when those people don't have those guys to look to anymore, and we're still pushing out that same message, they're going to turn to us and they're going to be like, oh, these guys are pushing that same message, right? So I think we can peel off some of those people. And I think that we can pull some of their team that's really good at these pieces of messaging, you know, not necessarily the other stuff that they're pushing, but for these pieces of messaging, I think we can peel off some of their team where it makes sense and use that to push. And maybe we can even like get them to come on board with us, give us their donor list, give us their marketing list. I think that that's a possibility, right? So I've already had a talk with RFK, and I'm slated to have a talk with Vivek soon.
Okay. So, like, full disclosure, I'm also in communications, digital content marketing. So I'm biased. I'm 100% with you with what you're saying. It's exactly where my instincts would go. Because if you cement certain messaging in part of culture, and then the people at the vanguard of that messaging disappear, there's a void for people to pick up the messaging. It doesn't go away. So along those lines, what are your top 3 issues?
Well, I think I basically said them, which is the economy, stupid. It's always the economy, stupid, right? The economy, I'm big on taxation. I've been audited by the IRS and the Franchise Tax Board multiple times. You know, they came after me for tens of millions of dollars, and it was like 5 years of kind of working and thinking, God, you know, if they take everything I own, why am I working? Right. So there's this like angry cloud over me the whole time. And I don't feel like anybody should have to live in fear of their government. And I think the IRS has way too much power to like reach into your bank account and seize your money whenever they feel like it, you know, garnish your wages. I mean, no one should have to live like that. Everybody hates the tax system. You know, everybody wants to end the loopholes. You know, the Congress uses the tax system to grant favors to the rich and the powerful. I want to end that practice. I want a transparent, easy to understand tax system. So I'm a backer of the fair tax. I first learned about that with Gary Johnson's campaign. I signed the pledge. Now, look, of course, I'd like to have zero taxes. That's the North Star for all of us, right? But I will sign any legislation that comes across my desk that reduces taxation. If Congress wants to come to me and say, hey, Lars, the best we can give you is a 5% cut across the board, I'm taking it, right? Because that moves the needle in the direction that I want to be at. And so I think, and then the third thing that's super critical is electoral reform. We cannot have a functioning republic with the way that our election systems are working right now. Nobody trusts it. And if you don't trust the basic system for electing your representatives, then our republic is going to fall apart. And so it is critical that we fix our election system, ballot access, gerrymandering, ending open primaries. I like proportional representation, ranked choice voting. There's so many things that we can do to like fix the problems that we have. Term limits. I'm a big fan of term limits. I don't think Congress should be a career, it should be a service position. And I wouldn't want any of the presidents that we've had in my lifetime to be president for 50 years. I think term limits work great on president, and I think they would work great on Congress also.
So for everyone listening, if you could check out the Tar Heel that went out Tuesday the 8th, we do have a ranked choice voting event coming up with Better Ballot North Carolina. I love hearing that, Lars. It's an interesting thing because I'm sort of against voting. Like
Okay.
it gets into the anarchist side of it because it's the tyranny of the majority. You're saying you can get rid of certain powers, but how can we even pretend to take that seriously if, like you said, there's so much distrust in the electoral system and the results, and then each party weaponizes that against the other one. So in 2016, Democrats were, the whole thing is rigged and it's fake, and
they created it. They created it. They're like, oh, we're going to create this morass of crap that everybody has to jump through all these rigged systems, and then we're going to whine about it. And then when they start suppressing their own people, like RFK and the down ballot Republicans, they're like, I can't believe we're kept out of the debates. And I'm like, hello, libertarians over here, 50 years, no debates. What are you talking about? Welcome to the club, bros. And so then I reached out to them and I'm like, so your team won't debate you. I will. Let's go. And then they're like, oh, I don't know. I asked RFK directly. I'm like, let's have a debate. And he's like, oh, I don't know. Maybe we can think about it. He's just wishy-washy, right? So, but I do have 2 opportunities coming up where I may be able to debate both RFK and Vivek. So I'm excited about those.
I love to hear it. There's no better stepping stone for us than getting on that debate stage, because we are portrayed as fringe, and sometimes we are, and I welcome it, but sometimes it's the opposite. It's like we are the most common sense, easy, like,
yes.
Oh, I just never thought of it that way.
Yep.
So that's policy. That's like you said, a little headier, but rubber to the road. You're elected. What do your first 100 days in office look like? Yeah.
So I was kind of like looking at this because it's a long shot to get to the presidency, right? And so I believe it was the first 100 days was kind of invented by FDR, right? That was like that's where they came up with this whole first 100 days thing, right? So one of the things that I'm looking at is there's a thing called the Plum Book. I don't know if you're familiar with what the Plum Book is, but Congress puts out a list every 4 years of all the positions that president gets to fill. And there's up to 7,000 positions that the president gets to fill, and that doesn't include all their people, all the bureaucracy underneath them, right? So we're probably talking 40,000 people that are directly underneath the president, right? So I started looking through some of those things and I was like, oh, these are all at the behest of me. If I'm elected president, I can just start I can not fill these positions and I can tell these people just go home, right? And the idea there is that I believe Congress doesn't do their job. Congress keeps giving the power, more and more power to the president, and he's becoming more and more like a king, and the executive order and all these positions. And I'm like, look, abolish all these things in the Plum Book. And if Congress thinks that they're necessary, they can reenact them with legislation and create whatever, organization. But they skirt their duty, and it's to their benefit, because then they're not responsible for it, right? The president is responsible for it, so they can just put that effort onto that person. So some other things that I think would go on in the first 100 days is I'd like to, hopefully the Ukraine war with Russia is over by then, but probably not, the way things are going. So I'd like to start negotiations immediately for a peace agreement there and getting that area settled so that we can stop worrying about nuclear war across the planet. I'd look at shutting down bases and withdrawing troops, but in a reasonable manner, so that we don't end up with another Afghanistan where we're like, harming our own people, just trying to rush to the exit, super quickly. Balancing the budget, and then really pushing on this voting reform, and then also tax reform. I think those are things that I would really be pushing for in my first 100 days. As obviously bully a pulpit and trying to get Congress on board with these pieces, but the power of veto is pretty powerful. So I think that the presidency for a libertarian would be the power of no, the president of no. And if it's not, I often say if Congress can't get 2/3 on something, maybe it's not worth passing.
I'm over here thinking then on day 101, you sort of, and pull a Thanos, like sit back and look on a grateful universe. I love every word of that. So running along with that, because you are fighting, so Congress doesn't do its job. I don't even know what Congress does except screw us. So
Nobody does. Nobody does.
It's become ridiculous. But taking the R&D from the names in front of the names in Congress, and just looking at the average American who's Republican or Democrat, while they have been sort of pushed into this level of polarization, a lot of those people align with the parties because of what they think the parties have principles. They're wrong, but that's a separate discussion. But along those lines, just looking at each party, what's like one issue you feel that party gets really right and one that's like really wrong?
Yeah. Well, look, there's a reason I'm a libertarian, right? And the Unit Party is mostly authoritarian, and I believe that leads to a lot of the division that we have in America right now, is that they each come from this moral high ground and they want to push their agenda on the rest of the people, and they use government coercion to do that, right? And that, I think, is where the division kind of comes from in America. And so we need to get away from this like kind of government coercion. I really don't align with Democrats or Republicans because I feel like most of them are authoritarian. Most of them talk out the side of their neck. They say one thing and do completely the opposite thing. But I think that I think there are, like you said, individual people in Congress that do have principle on both sides, right? And so I would look to build a Freedom Caucus coalition, but of Democrats and Republicans. Anybody that wanted to work with me to reduce the state, I'm willing to work with, right? That's like the bottom line. It doesn't really matter if you're R or D, but if you're coming at me and you're saying like, I want to enact, if when my policy team says, well, maybe we need a law for that, I just go, no, we're not doing that, right? I don't want to create more laws because that's the problem that we have right now. I want to reduce the laws. I want to reduce the regulations that we have, make things simpler, more transparent, and easy to understand. And I don't think that the duopoly does that at all. The Uniparty only continues to create more and more and more. I mean, here's an example in the high tech world. There's often a time where companies lay off like 10% of their employees, like every 5 or 6 or 7 years, they lay off like 10% of their employees. And that's to like bring in new, fresh people, kind of cut the bottom tier people that aren't working out. And I was thinking about it and I was like, when is the last time Congress had layoffs? When is the last time government laid anybody off? They don't know how to lay anybody off. All they do is know how to grow. And that's why our deficit just continues to spiral out of control, because they have no ability to like regulate their fiscal irresponsibility, right?
So, I mean, yeah, like I'm with you. Like Congress reduce itself. There's Jon Stewart he wrote a book called America. It's one of the funniest things I've ever read. And there's a line in there: if pro is the opposite of con, then is progress the opposite of Congress.
100%.
So I wanna bring a couple people from the LPNC on and continue this with a panel if you're cool with it. But I got one more question for you, specific as you think about how you are campaigning. Watching the last few election cycles and then looking at the extreme polarization we've been talking about, what lessons have you learned? How can you apply them to drive success? And in particular, I know that Gary and Joe ran some controversial campaigns. and I have my critiques personally of each of theirs. I also think they did some things well. I'm curious, as you reflect on it and look on how you would go forward, what lessons can you take from there, and what other lessons have you learned that you'd like to apply?
Yeah. Well, I think the one thing that Gary Johnson did well, I think, was he was king of fundraising. Like, he fundraised more than anybody else, you know, in the party's history. And Jo Jorgensen, I think, you know, I mean, she was in the middle of a pandemic, right? So things were kind of chaos for her, and there, you know, it was there was a lot of challenges that went around that, unfortunately. So I don't think that she got the 100% fair shake that, you know, she could have had. But I think that both of them could have done with a much heavier media and social media presence and really pushing that. And that's one of the reasons why I was interested in running, is because I felt like I could bring that skill set that was sorely missing, and that we could get the message out to a lot more people, you know, on Facebook and Twitter, X now. You know, on X in the last 28 days, I reached almost 16 million people, right? And
Wow.
and last summer, on Facebook, I had a particularly good run, and I was reaching about 17 million people in like a 90-day period on Facebook. So, and I'm still reaching multi-millions of people on Facebook right now, and my social media continues to grow. And I fully plan to be you know, probably triple the size by the time we get to the convention, as far as number of followers and numbers of you know, people that I'm reaching with our message.
So, Lars, I mean, it clearly thinks you've thought about this. Sounds like you've thought about the strategy, excuse me, which is good. I mean, it's not just go out there and do whatever you want. I'm going to bring the panel on, but first, as I remind everyone, every time you do this, watch these next slides. These people do not pay us. These are libertarians who have their own businesses, selling their own products. We should be supporting them. We will be right back. All right, so now that you've all hit pause and run and patronized each of those libertarian businesses, we are back with Lars Mapstead running for president, the Libertarian nomination, as well as LPMeck chair, Stephen DiFiore, also my friend, don't hold it against him, and coming to us from the coast, Trevor Miles. Stephen had a visitor. That's fine. He can still hear us. So I want to jump back into the conversation with a couple of fun questions for everyone. And I'm going to start with you, Lars. What 3-letter agencies would you prioritize unwinding, and how would you accomplish this?
Yeah, I think that the ones that I would prioritize are the ones that wouldn't cause havoc if we abolished them immediately. So I would shy away from the things that are touching the economy, and I would move more towards things that are just easily abolishable. So I would focus on something like the FBI, the ATF, the DEA, and the Department of Education, because I think all those things could be abolished without really causing any real havoc to the economy.
What about you, Trevor?
Well, I can't remember what I said last time I was on, but I would definitely hit the ATF, DEA, and the IRS first.
That is actually what you said last time. I don't remember what I said last time. I'd go with the Fed first, but it would be an unwind process. You can't pull the rug out from under the Fed immediately, obviously, but it would be an immediate unwind. And then I would go with the IRS, but I would take that 78,000 agents and have them audit the Fed as part of the unwind process. And then I'd get rid of the whole Department of Homeland Security and just everything under them. And what about you, Stephen?
Oh man, well, if we, got rid of these alphabet agencies, what would all these federal employees do to contribute to the economy? I mean, think of the poor ATF guys and the DEA guys. I mean, how would they abuse the American people if we put them out of a job? It'd be just the worst thing.
That would be a shame, wouldn't it?
It would be the best. I will go a bit more wonky, and I would say the very first thing I would do is dismantle the Jones Act and all its ancillary structures,
All right.
because this 100-year-old law literally does nothing but enriches about 5,000 people in a country of 300 million by like huge margins. And it literally, and I use the word properly, it literally makes everything more expensive. Literally everything more expensive. It's terrible.
All right. I
Agreed.
like it.
I like that one too.
Well, then, Stephen, let me stick with you. What's your least libertarian position?
I think the AR-15 is a terrible weapon for home defense. I'm an AK guy.
Oof. Ah, that's funny. Well, you haven't seen the last question I got for everyone. What about you, Trevor? What's your least libertarian position?
I mean, that depends on what type of libertarian you're talking about. You ask if you're an anarchist, then my least libertarian position is that the courts should exist at all under the auspices of the government. Because I'm a minarchist, so
No, that's fair. So
Shame the unbeliever. No, I'm playing. I'm kidding.
Because I'm a minarchist, but my least libertarian position is that private police and private prisons are a really bad idea. The way we're doing it now is really bad, but you're incentivizing, like they make their money by locking people up. What about you, Lars? Least libertarian position?
Yeah, well, we answered that a little bit, but just I think that, like I said before, I don't really feel like I have a least libertarian position. I just, I don't really feel like I do. I feel like I'm pretty, now I'm not, I think what it is it's kind of that North Star thing that we were talking about, right? It's like, everybody has a little sliding scale on each position of where they're at along the kind of libertarian line or the anarchy line, minarchist line kind of a thing. So I think I'm a little bit in the moderate. I would put myself in sort of the moderate camp, but my North Star is all the kind of like principled pieces that we have, right? So I know, like taxation, for instance, my ideal would be zero taxes. That'd be my North Star, right? But the realist in me says that's not going to happen. So we have to come up with some other options and solutions that we can sell to Congress and to the people, right? So, things like the fair tax, what we were talking about, or even like a moderate position of like cutting back on FICA dramatically so that people keep more money in their pocket every time they work. There's ways of doing that. And like I said before, if Congress came to me and said, Lars, the best we can do for you is a 5% tax cut across the board, I'm signing that because it gets me in that direction that I want to go.
I mean, that all works. No argument with any of it. This has delved back into sort of the libertarian philosophical realm. So moving sort of back into the concrete applicability realm, we talk some about what your goal is for success beyond one electoral vote after a campaign. If you're president, assuming you don't win, which I will never say is impossible, but right now certainly appears to at least be a long shot. What else does success look like?
Yeah, well, obviously Gary Johnson and a lot of the other candidates before me have pushed for that 5% threshold, so that we can get permanent ballot access for states. So, and that kind of goes along with my whole election reform kind of a situation. I feel like ballot access should be equal and fair across the board, regardless of what your party is, or even if you're just an independent running. So that's, that's one of those things that I would really be pushing for. I'm sorry, I lost the question.
No, that was what success looks like. Ballot
access.
access.
So success. Yeah, what success looks like. So I have two more things on what success looks like. So I think that the presidency is essentially the messaging for the platform. It gets the most fundraising. So fundraising would be one metric that I would really be interested in. More new members would be another metric that I would find for success. And helping those down ballot candidates get elected, I think, is critical. And then finally, I guess I've talked about like building some infrastructure for the party, and it's kind of more like an LNC thing than it is a presidential candidate. But when I've been running for president, I've realized that there's a lot of institutional practices that we don't have that get lost from campaign to campaign. So anything that I build in my campaign, I will be giving to the LNC for them to use for our down ballot candidates and future candidates that want to use it.
Okay.
Can I have a follow-up question?
I was about to say, Stephen, I was going to say, what do you want to see in terms of success from our presidential candidate? If you get a question, roll with it, and then I'll throw it back to you for.
Yeah, no. So with regards to building institutional knowledge within the national party, as the viewers and you guys may know, the purpose of political parties in the minds of many is to get people elected, right? But it's not an easy thing to do. So have you reached out or contacted other presidential campaigns or even gubernatorial campaigns for notable libertarians of the past and sort of pick their brain and see what kind of institutional knowledge you can glean from them to build a sort of holistic approach if you want to build something that you want to give off to the LNC afterwards? Like, have you done that, like reached out to other organizations and built off what they also have learned in the past?
Yeah, I think part of it is that I've kind of gotten a pretty good team of a mix of people across the board that have come from different campaigns, have worked on different campaigns. So I get some knowledge from those people. So that I think that's kind of good. And I had like when I was telling Robert that I had talked to RFK Jr. A couple weeks back in Memphis, and we had a good talk. And I'm also been reaching out to Vivek's team. So I think that, the thing is, like, one of the main things is fundraising, is that for presidential candidates, and all of the presidential candidates that are running right now are challenged with fundraising. That's the bottom line. And I sold my company, and I was able to get a lot of money from my company. And so I was able to, in the 2022 midterms, help donate money to a lot of candidates all over the country, right? And so, but what I realized was that there's not this kind of institutional ability to raise money. The Democrats and the Republicans have Act Blue and Win Red, which you see all the time on social media. And essentially it's a PAC that's specifically for fundraising, and it aggregates all the donors that have ever given to the Democrats or the Republicans, and they can quickly tie in any candidate to that database and immediately start fundraising. And so they can get a down ballot candidate and they can raise $20, $30, $50,000 pretty quickly for even small local elections. So I've been pushing this idea of building a Go Gold, which would be a political action committee for the Libertarian Party that would be a database of all of our donors that we could use to help fundraise. I talked to Michael White, who ran for Congress in Arkansas, and he told me that if he would have had a list of people that were donors, he could have called them all, and that might have made the difference in his election. But like literally, we've been here for 50 years and we don't have databases of donors for all. I don't understand. Like, that doesn't, like, I'm a business guy, right? And that's the first thing that I would want to do, is build these infrastructure pieces to make it easier for us to run campaigns. And it seems like in some ways, the way that the LNC turns over all the time, we lose this institutional knowledge every time it turns over. And every time there's a presidential run, we build up all these resources and we relearn all the stuff that was learned before. And then the knowledge just disappears, right? We need to have that kind of coalesce together so that we can push forward. Like that's like, if you look at the Forward Party and you look at this new No Labels Party and you look at how they're fundraising and how they're organizing, I mean, they're kicking ass, right? We need to like look at what they're doing and emulate that so that we can get our message out, because it doesn't matter how great our message is, right? If we're not taking bold action and we're not getting our message out there, it doesn't matter how great it is. People are just gonna, ignore it, right? It's not gonna be heard. So I'm a big fan for pushing this institutional knowledge and getting it, the structure for our candidates to win.
So, quick
Music to
side
my
note.
ears.
Yeah, well, yeah. And Steven's running for city council in Charlotte. I'm running
Awesome.
for mayor, but Steven has a chance. I mean, Steven really has a chance. I think that the other candidates would probably have to get caught. Like, I don't even know what heinous act could get them knocked out for me to win. But so, quick side note, if you go back and watch Liberty Inc. 2 episodes ago, we have an interview with North Carolina independent journalist Stephen Horn, and he found a number of people who had given these very auspicious weekly donations of like $50 to Act Blue that added up to several tens of thousands of dollars. He went and confronted those people. They had no idea where these donations were coming from. It's amazing how they're sneaking that money in. But it's the institutional knowledge thing is concerning. And so I want to go over to Trevor for this one, because Trevor, you have fascinated me since we met, because you were a cop and you've come in like you're as based as they come now, but you're young. And I don't mean that in a condescending way. It's like you're a young person joining the Liberty movement. That's amazing. So when you hear Lars talking, what does a successful presidential run look like for you? How does it affect where you are in your affiliate, your locality?
So for us, for me, I think a successful libertarian presidential campaign at this moment, not talking 10, 15, 20 years down the road, but right now, would be to help support local level candidates, because that I think is the strategy that's going to get us the most exposure to the public, is to get local people elected so that they can espouse these libertarian ideals. Because the reality is a lot of people don't know what a libertarian is.
Yeah.
Like,
Lars said the
I
exact
have
same
a-
thing. Everyone
I
Googles
ha-
libertarian.
I have the bumper sticker on my car, and I can't tell you the amount of times someone has asked me, what does that mean? And I
Yeah.
have to kind of give them like the Cliff Notes version of everything, because there's just too much to go into, you know.
Yeah.
But
It's hard.
that,
It's hard to explain all that for sure.
yeah, but that's honestly a presidential campaign right now. I would, if it was me, I would focus on getting exposure to the general public to the ideals of libertarianism, and not necessarily on winning the office. If I do win, that's great, good deal. But the more people I can expose to the ideas of libertarianism, the better, in my opinion, we have in the future.
What we have something good going here. It's build infrastructure, and build infrastructure in a way that carries over so we don't lose institutional knowledge, we can build on it, and then use both the power of exposure as well as that infrastructure to get local candidates elected. When you think about infrastructure, so it's easy to talk about a digital infrastructure, database, historical tracking, understanding what we're doing, and taking advantage of that. What are the other things? Like, when you run a campaign, you gain a lot of knowledge on how to run a campaign. When you become an activist for a particular cause, you gain a lot of knowledge how to become an activist for that cause. How do we get that component of institutional knowledge somewhere that it can be utilized subsequently?
Yeah. So two things. So I started running for president, and I realized quickly that I was building knowledge that, you know, was how to run for president, how to run a campaign, right? And that's why I filed 2.5 years ago, because I knew I needed a long runway, since I had never run for office before and I didn't really know what I was doing. So, and then I just hired experts that had done it before, right? Larry Sharp and, you know, various people like that, to make sure that I could figure out what I was doing. But yeah, yeah, I lost the question again.
You're good with it. What are the things that, in terms of institutional knowledge, pure institutional knowledge,
Yeah.
only gained by experience, how do we encapsulate that and preserve it in a way that's useful? What are we missing on that opportunity?
Yeah, well, so like, for instance, one of the things that we're pushing on, which you guys might not know of, but there's a woman, Kara Schultz, who used to do the candidate training.
Out of
Okay,
Minnesota,
yeah,
she does the whole not selling weed thing.
and then a day of candidate training, essentially. So I took her thing in Reno, and I was highly impressed, because while it didn't necessarily, it was more for like local candidates. I was like, this is really good knowledge that needs to like get to new candidates and stuff, right? So and then she was let go from LNC, and I thought, oh gosh, now they're not going to do candidate training. So I reached out to Kara, and I was like, what could we do to get you to still do this candidate training? And so I've actually, she agreed to work with me and my campaign to offer free candidate training to all the candidates. So we're going to be doing online candidate training, and then several in person. And then we're really pushing for a big thing at the national convention again in DC for candidate training, because like I said before, I think that the local candidates is the most important thing. That running for president is for messaging, fundraising, kind of getting things together. But really, the boots on the ground is where it's at. The things that are going to change for Libertarian Party is at the local level. I'm 100% for that. So I feel like we need to do anything that we can to support the down ballot candidates to have success.
Let's running right along those lines, Stephen. You've run for a couple of different levels of local candidates now, local candidacy, all the way up to governor. What are the differences you saw in the types of campaigns, and like what are we missing out, even just in North Carolina, and preserving that knowledge?
Yeah, so running is it's first and foremost, running to win is really hard. Especially if you're not part of the uniparty. They make sure that stuff is locked up pretty good. Now, the first time I ran for city council, it was a couple years ago, 2017. Basically, no one in the party at the local level in Mecklenburg County really knew how to run. Like we were all of the opinion. We're at a meeting. We're like, well, elections are coming up. The whole point of a political party is to run, candidates. We had somebody who was interested in being a candidate, had actually gone to a couple forums, but when it came time for candidate filing, they were declared ineligible due to filing rules for the state of North Carolina. So we're like, well, we really wanted to like run for somebody. So the county chair at the time, Jeff, he ran for a district race, and and I, an at-large member at the time, or the secretary at the time, ran for an at-large race. And the purpose of that was to do the best campaign we knew how to do, but also learn along the way. So, I pretty much like made every mistake you can make running as a candidate, but I only made each mistake once. So like, that's good. And kept diligent records and, talked about it. Right. And so when it came time around a couple years later, the Libertarian Party of North Carolina reached out to me. Well, it's funny. I reached out to the party to see who I could help for the governor candidate. Like, hey, listen, I have some experience. We built up something of a team and some institutional knowledge in Mecklenburg County. I want to help the party run the governor candidate because we need a governor candidate to reach 2% to get ballot access. I think it was the chair, the vice chair at the time. She was like, "Oh, funny you should call about that. We kind of wanted to know if you wanted to run as a candidate." And I was like, "Ha ha, that's really funny." But seriously, who was it going to be? And like, well, we were hoping you. And so they, it took them it took a concerted effort for a lot of people at the state level, continually calling me and emailing me to basically wear me down and say, okay, I will, with some conditions. And those were met, built a team, and thought we were going to do, like, our plan was, guerrilla marketing and knocking on doors. We had a plan to knock on 100,000 doors across the state, which I think would have mostly in communities that politicians don't typically knock on doors and go to. And the first, and unfortunately the only door knocking event, were in some, rather economically depressed neighborhoods in Wilmington, with some then presidential candidates, Jacob Hornberger being one of them. And then this was late 2019, and then 2020, something strange happened in 2020. What happened in 2020? Oh, COVID and the lockdowns, the shutdowns. And we're like, well, the state says stay at home, shut down your business. Well, let's see, let's give it a shot. Not everyone's going to be drinking that Kool-Aid. The first door I knocked into, like, what the fuck are you doing? Oh, you're going to kill me, I'm like, oh, whoa, okay, we
right
got
at
to
that
change.
time too.
Yeah. Like, we got to change tact. And so it was really difficult because we had to try to figure out a complete new way. They say the best laid plans never survive contact with the enemy. So one of the things I most learned was being nimble. So, we did our best, use the team that we had. Fundraising, to your point, Lars, earlier, super important. I don't know if I was, how I measured on the whole fundraising thing as far as libertarian candidates in North Carolina. We tried our best, and we raised, I don't know, something like $12,000 or $13,000 or something like that. Not even a drop in the bucket compared to the millions that the other candidates were able to raise. But it was enough to get some message out there: billboards, mailers, and street signs, and phone banking and stuff like that. But yeah, the thing is, it's pay to play. And so one of the things this time around, in Mecklenburg County, in specifically the city of Charlotte, my candidacy has a real shot, right? So the thing I'm focused on, right now it's the primary season, so no one's going to really pay attention to me before the primaries are done, which is fine. That gives me, as you said earlier, like a longer runway, focused just on fundraising. So making those phone calls, getting money in the bank so that, we can have, all the materials that we need right from the get-go as soon as, the primary contest is done with, try to, go out from the gate. But, one of the things I learned was how important fundraising is and how unnatural it is for non-salespeople to ask for money. Like it's, if you're at a meeting or a meet and greet, it feels so strange, and Lars, you probably know this, to walk up and be like, hey, I'm Steve, I'm here to run for office. Can I get some money from you? Please?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a skill. It's a skill. So are you Stephen for NorthCarolina.com? Is that you right now?
That is the old governor's website that is going to be transitioning to the county, the city council website.
Gotcha. Okay. So are you taking donations right now? Can I make a donation?
You can, so that's one of the problems that I ran into was with the bank. So some mistake happened. I thought, and again, this is being nimble. Thought everything was ready to go. First time I tried to make the donation, like to test it for myself.
Yeah.
It's like, why isn't this working? And you go to call up the donation company. It's like, well, they work banker's hours, which is fine if you don't have a full-time job that also has banker's hours. So it's like you're trying to call on your lunch break and you're leaving messages.
Well, that's another way the system is rigged, right? It was like just trying to find a bank account to handle presidential stuff. I mean, like I went to 15 banks. I went to banks that I've banked with for 30 years and they're like, yeah, we're not touching that. Right. And I went to all the local credit unions and they're like, yeah, we used to do that, but we're not doing that anymore. And so I finally ended up with, a bank. And when I went into the local branch, they're like, oh, they tried to give me the California rules, right? Like they're like, you have to fill out this California form. I'm like, I'm not running for a state office. I'm running for federal office. And so they didn't know what to do. They had to call, they had to call New York and the deep, they had to get a lawyer on the phone. I mean, it was ridiculous. And it's like this huge roadblock to even getting a bank account so you can actually run for president, right? And then you have the FEC, which has all these ridiculous rules that are just overbearing and ridiculous. I mean, I get that you want to have some transparency, you want to know what your candidates are doing, but if you haven't even received your party's nomination yet, what does it matter, right? What does it matter what you're doing? Because you're not really a candidate until your party says you're a candidate, right? So I think that there's a lot of that kind of rules. It's just overbearing ridiculousness, and really it's just another way for the duopoly to suppress people, right? Because it just puts hurdles and roadblocks in place for us to try to like run, and that's what they try to do. They just try to make it as difficult as possible, and then they say, well, if you're a Democrat or a Republican, we have a totally different set of rules, right? Because the system is completely rigged, right?
Yeah. And I'll say this, the first and second time I ran, like getting the bank account set up and all that was like the easiest part. Like I was super surprised. I'm like, oh, this is super easy, go to the bank, set up a bank account, but this, for some reason, this time around, I think some rules or something have changed. Like everything's all messed up. Like, all the paperwork's different. And like the people at the bank are like, oh, well, you got to fill this out. You got to fill that out. And then you go to the Board of Elections and they're helpful as much as they can be. But like, there's even like a stack of rules and forms you got to fill out here and there. And, again, if you have like a dedicated treasurer, which I do, which is also very important, I would say, for anyone who's watching and wants to like look at being a candidate, get a dedicated treasurer. Someone like that's the one thing they do. And with, because without my treasurer, I don't know what I would be doing. Like it.
But this is an exact example of institutional knowledge that I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't have to think of these things. The Libertarian Party should have all this stuff in a database that says, if you live in North Carolina, these are the banks you can do business with. These are the websites that we've used. Here's all the resources. There should be a wiki of resources that are all available, right? And then there should be a list of all the people that have worked on campaigns that are willing to be still work on a campaign with listing what their skill set is, right? So you can call those people up and be like, hey, I need a marketing person. Hey, I need a website done. I know that you're a person that can do that. Can you help me out, right? Like, we need that kind of list. You know, I was fortunate that when I called national, they gave me TJ, and TJ was able to like really help me through because he had already done it all, right? But if I hadn't have landed on him, I would have been floundering. I mean, my campaign might have not got off the ground for another 6 months because just trying to figure out what's what, right? And if we want to win candidacy, we want to win
You
elections.
have to know how to do it.
We got to have this stuff up and running.
Yeah.
We got to fast track people. They can't spend their whole time relearning the same crap every time. Every
Yes.
person that's running for city council across the country shouldn't have to learn the whole thing, right? And one of the things I thought was, man, I'm learning all this skill set. You know, the only thing that this skill set is good for? Teaching other people the skill set or
Yeah.
running for office again.
Yeah.
And now I
Yeah.
know why there's career politicians, because once you learn how to ask for money, you can ask for money again easily. Once you have your team set up, it's easy to run again, right? But starting out is really challenging. We need to make it easier for all candidates who want to run as a libertarian to get up and running quickly and have the resources necessary in
they
order
can
to be
just run.
successful.
Just run. They're not wasting all that time.
Right.
So I have a couple more questions, mostly for you, Lars, about sort of you as a person, but I want to stick with this infrastructure thing a little longer because it's important. And I want to go to Trevor on this because you might not realize it yet, but you're going to be running for office a whole lot in your life. In all seriousness, though, like as you look at the possibility of running for office, and it's daunting. I mean, it is daunting no matter what, and especially the more local level you get, the higher chances of winning. What things would you need to have in place to make it an easy decision for you?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, for me right now, my biggest thing, because I did indeed toss up the idea of running for my town council, but I chose not to because the reality is I don't have the time. I don't have the time to commit right now. And I don't know what the financial obligations are to run for town council in North Carolina, but I also don't have the financials to commit to it right now. Because me and the wife just bought a house like 2 years ago.
Congratulations.
So we are that is our main thing, paying off these student loans. And trying to get a new car to replace her raggedy piece of junk that we have. But as far as actual like knowledge and advice and everything, it would be nice to have like a centralized database of information for when you want to run as a candidate at whatever level you want to run at. And to an extent, and this is not a plug for the caucus that I'm a board member at, but our caucus is working on that for all the candidates that we end up endorsing. It's not totally complete yet, but we're working on it.
There's actually, for everyone listening right now, on our Slack channel and I think on our Facebook page, we have listed the endorsement benefits for the CLC, the Classical Liberal Caucus, for the Mises Caucus, for the National Party, and for the North Carolina Party. And all of them have some support levels, some throw in some money. It's not a huge amount, but you know, I think National's $300 and the caucuses were like $50 each. And then they'll do some stuff and send stuff out to their members. And I like that. It's libertarians supporting libertarians. But Trevor, you actually said a lot more than you realized. You said if the party had an infrastructure that organized where it could tell you how much it costs to run and could give you some of the money to do it and could help you juggle your time so that you were able to fit it in, then you could run for office. So just a couple more things for Lars specifically. I want to get to know and give everyone a chance to get to know you. So running for office, being president, stressful jobs. What do you do to relax?
Yeah, well, I'm actually, like I told you before we got on, that I'm prepping my race car right now. Next week I'll be racing at Laguna Seca in Monterey Historics. I'm racing a 1952 Jaguar. And I race with a great group of people. So that's pretty fun. But I'm also a big video gamer. I like to play Fortnite. I like to play Overwatch. I really like any kind of video games. I've been playing video games since Pong came out in 1970, whatever it was that was. And I've Atari and Xbox and PlayStation, all of them. And PC. I've been doing that for a long time. I do surfing. I like to surf. I live next to the Pacific Ocean, so that's a big thing. I love gardening. I like to just watering plants is really awesome. Sometimes it's like the super kind of just you're just watering the plants, right? And I have a lot of animals, so I love hanging out with animals, hanging out with my friends, just joking and having a good time. I think those are all good ways of relaxing and just kind of taking your shoes off a little bit.
All good answers. I got Tears of the Kingdom going upstairs, and I got Resident Evil Biohazard going downstairs.
Nice.
I went from 6 to Village. I skipped Biohazard, so now I'm going back, and it's dark down here, so I gotta wait till it's daytime to play again because that game. But so 2 last questions, but one specifically for you, Lars. The last serious part of the discussion. 60 seconds, 2 minutes. Make your case. Make your pitch. Why should everyone support you?
Yeah. So as we talked about earlier, I want to win an electoral vote for the party, and maybe even more than one electoral vote. I want to put libertarians on the map, right? And I think that that's the best way to get our message out there is we have to make a splash. We have to really wake people up and say, who the hell are these people, right? Like I said, I want everybody in America to Google what is a libertarian, right? And really my whole platform is around unrig the system. If I tell you that the system is rigged, then that brings up something in your mind. Maybe it's criminal justice, maybe it's the healthcare, maybe it's the economy. There's all these things. Maybe it's education, right? And so there's all these ways that people feel like the system is unfair, unjust. And so I want to bring fairness and justice back to regular people. That's really what I am. So I would say I'm an everyday guy trying to bring back regular folks to have a regular life, right? And to be able to achieve the American dream that I achieved, right? Because I literally grew up with an outhouse and no electricity, and I went on to have a company of 600 people doing $350 million a year in sales, right? So I literally had the American dream, and I want that for all my friends. I want all my friends to have success. I want all my friends to be able to have some leisure time, to be able to hang out with their families and not have to work so much and worry about whether they're going to pay for their health care or the gas in their car, or like Trevor was saying, paying off his student loans. I mean, it's just there's all these things that are rigged. The whole student loan system, by the way, is completely rigged. It needs I have a whole plan for getting rid of that albatross, right, without saddling Americans with all that debt also. So I mean, I guess the reason people should back me is because I actually have a plan that can be successful, that can put libertarians on the map. And that is what we need sorely, because right now, like you said, the party is quite divided. And I feel like if we can all get behind this one goal and really push to win this electoral map and hopefully be the deciding factor in the election, that I think would really be a success for this campaign. And I'd like to see that for the Libertarian Party.
I absolutely love that answer. So the question to take us out, and Trevor, you may have heard this question already, but I got to tell you, this has accidentally become quite a hot topic in the Libertarian Party of North Carolina. Some very powerful opinions on both sides. So I'll start with Lars. Which is better for home defense, an AR or a 12 gauge?
Yeah. So I thought about this a little bit. I'm going to go with 12 gauge. And the reason I'm going to go with 12 gauge is that if my family has to pick up the weapon, I'm not there, the gun, right? And they need to defend themselves. I feel like they're going to be able to defend themselves with the shotgun better than the AR, just because you don't have to be a great shot. You just kind of point in the direction that you need to go and hope. And I own a shotgun, but I don't own an AR. So yeah, I guess that's my answer.
All right, fair enough. Steven.
I use an SKS.
Okay. Trevor?
Well, I don't own any rifles of any kind at the moment. Currently, finances improved. That will change. I do own an antique 20 gauge shotgun.
All right.
If I had to use that in a pinch, I would. But being former law enforcement, I was trained on how to clear a house with a pistol. And that's what I'm most comfortable with. And that would probably be the first thing that I'd pick up.
All right.
I mean, in
All right.
truth, the correct answer is the best weapon is the one that you have access to and you
Oh,
know how to use.
Yeah, that's true.
Amen.
Hey, thank you all very much. Great discussion. Lars, thank you. Before we sign out, I want to give each of you a quick chance, make your plug. So Steven, 60 seconds. What are your socials? Where can people follow you? What are you running for? How do we support you?
Yes, so I am the chair of the Libertarian Party of Mecklenburg County. If you want to support what the county is doing, supporting our local candidates, getting the word out and doing local activism, all you have to do is go to lpmeck.org. That's lpmeck.org. And you can hit that beautiful red donate button and donate to the local party. If you are in the area, if you're a local Mecklenburg County, Charlotte, Matthews, Mint Hill resident, a reoccurring donation, $5 a month, even if, like, that really helps us. We are very responsible with your money because we realize it's a gift to us. So it's not owed to us. We're not like the tax man. And we want to do everything we can to improve the quality of the quality of life of the people that live in the various towns in Mecklenburg County and the county itself. So that's where you would need to go. That's where all of our candidate information is, lpmeck.org. Hit that donate button, and we can make Charlotte, Matthews, Mint Hill, Pineville, Davidson, any town I might have forgotten, I'm so sorry, a paragon of what it can be to be a freer local community with our ideals.
I love it. And keep an eye out for Steven and me as we have events coming up over the next few months promoting all libertarian candidacies in Mecklenburg and really hopefully getting Steven elected. Trevor, your plug, rock and roll.
Okay, you can find me on Facebook at Trevor Miles. You can also find me on Twitter at Lo-Fi Libertarian. I am the person trying to start the regional affiliate out here in the OBX. So if you're in the OBX area, we got a meetup last Saturday of this month in Edenton. So find it on Facebook, hit me up on Facebook, whatever. And you can also find me on Discord at Lo-Fi Libertarian. So anybody got a Discord and wants to friend me, go for it.
And Lars, where can everyone find you? How do we follow you? How do we support? Because as everyone's come on, I've been given a donation, so you will get a good donation from me after this.
I love it. Yeah, so lars24.com is my website. You can go there and make a donation, even $1. I like $1 because what I'm looking for is to show that I have people that are supporting me. So I'm primarily self-funding my campaign. I'm going to be spending about $500,000 on this campaign. But I need to show that people support me. So even if you can just give $1, I would totally appreciate that. Also, I need delegates. I need delegates to go to DC in next year at the convention and vote for me. So you can go on my website and you can click on the delegate button, and that will give you a form to fill out if you would like to be a delegate, and we can reach out to you and get that going. And then social media, Facebook, Lars for President. And then X, I'm at Libertarian Lars.
All right. And I'm Rob Yates, Communications Director. I do, I guess, have a website now, prospercharlotte2023.com. I'm at prosperclt2023 on X. You're right, it is X now. But when you hit the donate button on my website, it's going to go to Steven's website. So, hey,
awesome.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate your time. Excellent discussion, really good insight. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the sports ball section of Liberty Inc. And we are your hosts, Groo and Cat Daddy, aka
No, it's still
the new Cat Daddy for sure.
Don't you be calling me a Cat Daddy. You'll have to take it up with my friend DJ Howell. He's the real.
Oh, you are the new Cat Daddy, aka Dub.
Well, it's because of my two little kittens that I adopted that he is calling me this, and
you're the Cat Daddy. I mean,
yeah, I'm a literal Cat Daddy, but
you are the Cat Daddy.
Well, okay. If you want to treat it that way, be that way.
Well, that's my nickname for you. I don't care about the other person. How about this heat, man? Are you surviving? I am struggling.
Hey, we get a respite. We're recording this Monday night, and there's hopefully a cold front coming tomorrow that'll cool it into the 80s and take some of this humidity out of the air. So
Yeah.
just be wary of
I'm gonna be
thunderstorms,
out there on
though.
the field playing right now. It's rough. So let's start out by talking about the Panthers.
Mhm.
How about them Panthers? How about that game? I'm embarrassed. 27-0 is unacceptable. I get it. It's preseason. But me personally, I didn't see any offense. I thought the offense was dead. The defense wasn't much better, but definitely better than the offense. I think we need some work. I know we only
Yeah.
played Bryce Young about 10 minutes, but if I was their coach, I would make them watch that video 5 or 6 times and tell everybody in the room to make fun of them every time they made a mistake. That was just an unacceptable game, in my opinion. How about you? What are your views?
Well, I am one of those people that puts nothing into the preseason other than growth and development, and we're trying to make sure we get the right 53 that makes the 53.
Fair enough.
I heard that James Campen, the offensive line coach, took all the offensive linemen into a room and they had a private meeting after the game, because there's a difference in, you're shaking off rust, and a difference in you're just performing poorly.
Mm-hmm.
And what we don't need is a sophomore slump from our wonderful rookie last year, Ike Ekwonu, and we need to protect our franchise QB rather than have him beat up in the preseason and not having him available for the regular season. But the
New York Jets didn't even play Aaron Rodgers.
No, they didn't. But I will say this: Aaron Rodgers has been in the league long enough. He's 40 years old almost, and you don't want your 40-year-old getting hit, period, in the preseason.
Right.
So he's earned it. And that's all I have to say about that. I mean, there were bright spots in the game. Bryce Young only went 4 for 6 for 21 yards, but I think you saw flashes of what we're expecting from him. He had quick reads. He stayed back there and he took the hits that he needed to take. But like I said, some of those, I think they were all on the offensive line. I don't think he sat back there and took too long, because the passes I saw were quick. They were effective. They were good reads. They were quick reads. That's what's most important. And he gained yards down the field.
One thing I'll give him, he looked confident. He did not look nervous. He looked like he was comfortable. Maybe he's found some chemistry with the team, but he did look comfortable. He didn't look nervous, and he didn't look frightened out.
And another thing is, they extended playing Matt Corral, who right now is 3rd on the depth chart, and he looked a little lost. He hasn't played meaningful football since last August, and he didn't do himself many favors to warrant them keeping a 3rd quarterback on the roster, which they're allowed to do now for emergency purposes. So he will probably get more looks in this upcoming game. But somebody I was impressed with, and it goes to the defensive side of the ball, Amari Barno.
Yeah.
He's shown to me that he took his offseason conditioning seriously and wants to be a solid pick to stay on the 53 this time. He was one of the guys who barely made it last year, and he wants it to be known that he's not going to make it barely this year. So that's one of the few bright spots you can take from a 27-0 preseason defeat.
Well, the stats are the Panthers have not been shut out since 2002. That's not good. It's not a good start. I get it's preseason. Again, I respect what you're saying, but to come out and to get shut out on preseason game 1 is a red flag. There's some work to be done.
There is work to be done. And the thing is, the reason I don't put much into preseason, I just remember the 08 Detroit Lions. They went 4-0 in the preseason, but went 0-16 for the regular season.
Well, you got a good point.
You can't put nothing in the preseason determined a Super Bowl for anyone.
Well, we only play 3 preseason games now, and the year the Panthers went to the Super Bowl, they lost all 4 preseason games.
Right.
So I get it, but I'm just not impressed. I wanted to see a little bit of hope for the offense, and I saw nothing. I saw a high school team flailing around out there.
Well, we still have 2 games left. There's still plenty of time before the regular season. All is not lost.
Right. I didn't say that. I'm just saying I'm a fan and I want to see them do better.
I know this fan base is starved for success. They haven't seen meaningful football in 6 years, and I get that. I really do, but for this squad, I think patience will be rewarded.
Okay. I'll give it to you. What else is on your mind?
Well, Charlotte FC had their run stopped by Inter Miami, the MLS All-Star team, as I call them. It made them look like they were a high school team playing in the Premier League, and it was
So why Messi went to that team?
It was probably because I don't know the exact parameters of his contract, but he either has a share of Inter Miami or he has a potential share of an MLS franchise. And that's probably what it is. And, he is looking a whole lot better in his situation than Ronaldo and Neymar now are doing in the Saudi league, just trying to make that league relevant. Messi has made MLS. It wasn't that MLS wasn't relevant, but now it puts them on the higher plane of, the leagues of the world, like the Premier League, like La Liga, like the Bundesliga, like Liga 1, those guys. So it's only good things for soccer in the United States and soccer awareness in the world of the United States. So, but I'm still proud of Charlotte FC for getting as far as they did. Nobody picked them to win their group, and they won their group. And nobody expected them to get this far. And, they beat some decent little clubs. And I can only hope that this experience bodes well for their playoff run in the second half of the MLS season. Or else Patanzio will be looking for a job. Because
let's head to a game. You want to?
Well, we can talk about that, but right now I have to see what my work schedule looks like, and I'll let you know.
Oh, no, you don't. You can skip out on work for a soccer game.
Well, unless you're me, because I sort of take my job a little seriously.
What are you saying? I don't take my job seriously?
No, you might have a job that has a little more wiggle room.
I have a job that gives you what they call PTO.
Well, yeah, I have some of that as well, and I've actually got to use a little bit of it. And but unfortunately, let me look at what I got. I have to give a 2-week notice before I take any.
Oh.
So I got to match up something 2 or more weeks ahead of
Got
time.
you. I respect that. Okay.
And match that up with days that I will potentially have off, because I know my supervisor likes to set the schedule week plus one ahead of time, just in case something happens.
Right.
And that
I don't
gives
know about you, man, but I am exhausted today. I don't
well
know.
it's oh yeah, the heat's been incredible, but we're powering through it.
Yeah.
And also, one thing we can't forget is that the Hurricanes have been doing their, I guess you would call their version of OTAs this week. Seeing some of the guys in the weight room out there on the ice.
Yeah, I saw that.
Especially Brent Burns. Brent Burns out here looking like he's still 25 years old.
Yeah.
And can just speed on down the ice. It's incredible how that man has stayed healthy.
Yeah.
Building his muscles, but yet still loses more teeth. So it is what it is.
Doesn't have many left, does he?
Yeah, and also today they released the over-under for the Hurricanes' end-of-season point total this year at 104.5.
Wow. Okay.
So that's the over-under. And I don't know how to bet that, because you know how well they did last year. 104 is not out of the question. The question is, the Vegas people know what they're talking about. How close will they be to that 104? You know, because 103 might win you a division. It might be fourth place in the Metro, depending on how tough the Metro is this year. Because people don't realize how the Metro
is the toughest division, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. It is the pathetic West. And the Atlantic is nothing but the two Florida teams, Toronto and Boston, jockeying for the playoffs now, because Detroit hasn't made it back up. Columbus is terrible, but they're in the Metro. I still am confused with all the divisions. They should just, I'm one of those people that wishes the NHL would just go back to a straight 1-8 conference playoff format rather than the 3-3 and 2 wild cards, because it's like, or either do a 1-4 divisional format like they did for 2020, where it was just the top 4 from every division that made the playoffs. I think that's a lot more fair, you know, and then do it like the old 80s style, where it was divisional semis, divisional finals, and then conference finals.
Yeah.
And then the Stanley Cup. You know, now that's fun. And this is the kicker. You treat it sort of like the ACC tournament in basketball, because, fun fact, if you didn't know this already, the winner of the regular season in the ACC gets absolutely nothing. They don't get a banner. They don't get a trophy, because in the Atlantic Coast Conference, and this has been true since its founding, the basketball champion is only the team that wins the conference tournament. The end. Doesn't matter whether they were first place in the regular season, 6th place, 3rd place, 8th place. It's them.
Yeah.
So they're the only ones that get a trophy.
Well, if you were in charge, we would do it that way.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I cannot be the whoa. I think my cats have got enamored with the box over there in the corner in my house.
How are the cats doing?
They're doing good. They're doing good.
Oh man, you need to send me a picture of one of them soon.
Oh yeah, I might even give her a cameo if she comes over here. But right now she's interested in attacking her brother. So
that'd be good.
Yeah. But they're a bundle of zoomies right now. I'm sort of glad we're doing this podcast now while they have their zoomies going on.
Oh yeah, there's
that's better than them doing it while I'm dead to the world asleep.
Yeah. So. I believe the next Panthers game, number 2 preseason game, is Friday. Is that correct?
Yes, it's Friday, and it is an evening game. I believe it is 7
Look.
p.m. kickoff. And we'll see what they'll bring in game 2 of the preseason. Hopefully points, at least 3.
Oh,
So,
man.
But they had 2 chances at points in that first game. They just decided to go for the first down because it was a 4th and 1 in the plus 30 range. So I don't blame them for that. It was just poor execution by Matt Corral again. And the offense, throwing it at the line rather than ahead of the line. And of course they get stopped. And then, another 4th down, which was the end of the game. And he's throwing a Hail Mary at the end of the game and it gets picked off, which, that wasn't going to work. So, you take it with what it is. And
Yep.
It was just, to me, like I said, going back, it was just a referendum on who is looking like they're going to be more on the permanent 53 and not, in the provisional 90 anymore. So we'll see who's around after the second Panther
Right.
game.
Right on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all I have.
And that's all I have.
Okay. We want to thank you for sticking around for the sports ball section of Liberty Inc.
Mm-hmm.
And I am Groo.
And I'm Dub,
he is
aka
Cat
to him,
Daddy.
Cat Daddy. Yeah.
Cat Daddy, we are your hosts. And we appreciate you watching all the way through. Without you, we would not have a job. So thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you very much. Y'all have a wonderful time.
Yes, have a wonderful time and have a wonderful rest of your day or evening. Once again, thank you for watching Liberty Inc. Bye-bye.
Bye.